everybody, welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. I am your host, Rebecca, and I recap live trials so you have something to listen to while you're crafting. So I'm going to give you an update on the Michelle Troconis case today. I'm taking a break from the other one, just need a little break, but I'll update you tomorrow. So Michelle Troconis is on trial for conspiracy to commit the murder of Jennifer Dulos. Now, Jennifer Dulos is presumed dead. She went missing on May 24th of 2019. She is the mother of 5 children that she had with Fotis Dulos, who at the time she disappeared, they were in this heated divorce custody battle. She was living in New Canaan with her 5 kids. He was living in the family home that they had all lived in prior to this separation and divorce. But he was living there because that's where his business was, and he was also living with Michelle Troconis and her daughter. So on May 24th, Jennifer's plan was to take her kids to school that morning, pretty early, 8:30. She takes her kids to work, comes back home. She had told the nanny, I'm going to, she was driving her Chevy Suburban when she dropped the kids off. Her plan was to come back home, take out her Range Rover, and drive to New York City for a couple of doctor's appointments that she had. And then she was going to meet up with the nanny and 4 of her 5 kids at her mom's apartment in New York that afternoon, and then take the kids to their orthodontic appointments. So when the nanny gets to mom's house, no sign of Jennifer Dulos, and Jennifer Dulos is never seen again. The last time anybody saw her was on that surveillance footage driving the Suburban to and from her kids' school. Never seen again. The Suburban is found later that evening, parked in a nearby park called Waveney Park. Yeah, interesting, huh? All right, so that's where we are. We're on day 22 of this case. 21 days of testimony is more like 21 days of listening to the defense attorney argue motions. This man probably would argue with the prosecution about whether the sky is blue or gray or, Payne's gray. No, it's blue. No, it's Payne's gray. Anyway, I'm just saying. So let me try to bring you up to speed because it's been a few days since I covered this trial because it's going so slow. So last week they had a person that came in, like this guy came straight out of the Big Bang Theory cast. Let me tell you. He was responsible for examining the infotainment center data from the Ford Raptor owned by Fotis Dulos and the Chevy Suburban owned by Jennifer Dulos. They were probably the 2 newest vehicles owned between the 2 of them, and very critical on the day that she goes missing. So the infotainment center, he explained, it's this big system that they put in the car. It's the radio, it's GPS, it's everything, and they can collect data about different things that are happening in the vehicle. The vehicle turning on, the vehicle turning off. We first heard about this kind of testimony in the case of Alex Murdaugh when they subpoenaed the records from, I don't remember if it was Ford or whatever it was, and they said, oh, we didn't get anything, and then all of a sudden at the last minute they have all this infotainment data about where Alex Murdaugh was the night of his wife and son's murder. Well, this is what they did in the Dulos case. So they pulled this data off, and the guy explained that it's not real reliable data. I don't know if you use that term, Seekers, but it's the data that you get off it is kind of random because there'll be areas where there's no data because the data could have been corrupted or because maybe it's old or it could have been overridden. He can't tell. The data cannot tell you who was driving the vehicle. All it can tell you is about certain events that occur in this vehicle, including whether or not someone with a Bluetooth device gets in and out of the vehicle and it connects to this infotainment center. So upon his examination of the black Ford Raptor, he he testified that it was, I'm just going to break it down because I don't know all this technical stuff, but the stuff that he was talking about is very consistent with the activity of that Ford Raptor on the morning of the 24th is consistent with what Fotis Dulos' employee, his site manager, construction manager, had said. His testimony was that I had that vehicle, the Ford Raptor. I'd had it for 2 weeks. I was planning, at the end of that day to drive it back to Fort Jefferson and get my vehicle, the red Toyota Tacoma, and take it home and get my dirt bike with me. But that morning, he said, I left my home. I went to New Canaan to the job site. So the vehicle infotainment center data said yes, that was consistent. And then it was consistent with coming back as well. But for the area of the 24th, there was a whole time frame that afternoon where there's nothing. The data was either corrupted or overwritten. But the data picks back up that evening when we know Jennifer's items were being disposed of in trash bags by Fotis Dulos and Michelle Draconis all over the city of Hartford. So the infotainment center data did show us all that. So then he examined the Suburban that was owned by Jennifer Dulos, and it showed that her Suburban was parked in that park all day, the Waveney Park, which we know it was. But here's the interesting thing. He said a Bluetooth device, cell phone, iPad, whatever it was, connected to this infotainment center at 2:56 p.m. Now, the prosecution's theory of the case is that Jennifer Dulos was murdered that morning after she dropped the kids off from school. So whose device is accessing this? At 2:56 p.m., we know that Pavel, Fotis, and Michelle are back in Farmington, which is over an hour away. So, and the only thing he could, because my thought was, well, maybe it was just somebody that saw the truck there, and because you don't have to be inside the vehicle, it could have accessed from a few feet outside the vehicle. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it was a passerby, but he says, no, it's a device that had connected with this infotainment center before. So that now the defense is entertaining, having the jury entertain the idea how, that Jennifer connected at 2:56 p.m. before she walked away from her 5 children, never to be seen again. Kind of creepy. All right. Then we get the cell phone data. And the cell phone data for Fotis's phone showed that he had some activity very early in the morning on the 24th. But between 6:44 a.m. and 12:22 p.m., there is no activity on that phone. Now we know that he left that phone in his office at Fort Jefferson. There were several phone calls that he got during that period of time, and there were several text messages sent during that time. None of those texts, none of those phone calls were answered until he gets back to Fort Jefferson that afternoon, between 12:30, 1 o'clock-ish, So, but someone answers the phone. Someone answers his phone at 8:52, and Michelle has said, yes, I answered the phone at 8:52. It was his friend from Greece. It was an 18-second phone call. Now, we don't know what the subject of that phone call was, but it was very, very brief. So they found text messages the night before that Fotis had sent his friend in Greece saying, hey, can you call me tomorrow? So the prosecution is throwing out the theory that this might have been a setup so that he could establish an alibi of being home during the murder at Farmington. An hour away. Then that evening at 10:23, he is sent a meme from his friend in Greece. Here's what this meme showed. There's this older man sitting there, and someone off camera is asking him a question. I'm going to give you two choices. A, you can stay with your wife for the rest of your life, or, and the guy goes, B. She doesn't even get it out yet what B is. He goes, B. So this kind of leaves the impression that perhaps Fotis told his friend what his plans were. I don't know. Interesting meme, though. Then later that evening, they found a 35-second phone call between Kent Moini and Fotis Dulos. Kent is a co-defendant, co-conspirator who has not been tried yet. And the evidence against him is not real strong either, just like it's not real strong against Michelle. So I mentioned that there's been a lot of motion arguments. So one of the motions that was argued was the defense wanted to suppress the prosecution's final witness for yesterday. They were going to bring in the medical examiner to testify about her manner and cause of death. Well, there's no body. So how in the world are you doing this? And so the defense filed a motion saying, wait a minute, how is he going to testify about the cause and manner of death when he has not examined a body or any body parts? And the judge agreed with him. He agreed. He says, the jury has heard all about this. They've heard all the same stuff that the medical examiner is basing his opinion on. He was going to give the opinion that this was a homicidal violence, that she died by homicidal violence from injuries that were not survivable, given, had she been medically intervened. But that opinion is based on everything he's reviewed. Well, the judge says, well, the jury's reviewed all that too, and they could reach their own opinions. So he granted the defense motion, so that no, we're not going to hear from the medical examiner, which I don't disagree with that result, because how in the world can you give an opinion if you haven't examined a body? No, because there was a large amount of blood loss, you're assuming that she had wounds that weren't survivable? No, that makes no sense. Then the last argument was, and this really goes to motive here. The prosecution wants to bring on the guardian ad litem for the 5 children. The guardian ad litem is a person that's appointed by the courts. It could be a lawyer, it can be a volunteer. If it's a volunteer, they get trained, but they represent those 5 kids. What is in the best interest of these 5 children? They don't care about Michelle's lawyer. They don't care about the prosecution. So they wanted to bring this person on to testify about what was going on at the time this murder, what was going on in the case, custody battle. So apparently there is a custody report that has been sealed, and everybody wants their hands on it. The prosecution's theory is that that report contained negative information regarding Fotis Dulos, and this was his motive to get rid of her. One. Now, the defense is claiming, well, if you're going to open the door there, we're going to bring in all these people to say that what was going on was actually in favor of Fotis Dulos. So why in the world would he care about what this report shows and want to kill Jennifer if the report was favorable? So we don't know. And we don't know if they're going to be able to bring in that report through this witness. I suspect that will be going on today, and the judge will probably rule, as he's been doing for most of these motions. He kind of rules on it as it comes up. He wants to hear the testimony first. So we'll see about that. The other thing that came out during the testimony was the surveillance footage from where Fotis took the Toyota Tacoma later on that afternoon of the 24th, or was it the next day? Might have been the next day. He got it detailed. No, it was that day. Yeah. Because Pavel had called him and said, "Where are you?" And he's like, I'm at the car wash with your car." So he took it to the car wash. He goes in, and they actually the car wash guy there. He goes in, he fills out the paperwork, and you can only see the back of him. But even from the back, I can tell this is Fotis Dulos. He's got those big ears. So he paid $250 in cash. And when he filled out the information, he wrote that it was a Toyota Sienna, which is a minivan, and not a Toyota Tacoma. And he used Michelle's phone number, not his. And the $250 was for, like, the works, full detail. So then this guy testified about, what is entailed in this full detail. What are you doing there? He says, we're using pneumatic tools, the tools that are function via air, and to vacuum and clean. And we're using all these different cleaners. They talked about the different cleaners because we know that there was no DNA found in that vehicle afterwards when it was searched of Jennifer Dulos. Yeah, except on the seats that were taken out. Apparently, Jennifer Dulos did have some DNA that was found on the seats that were later removed, but kept by Pavel and turned over to the police. Yeah, that's what's going on in this case. Day 22. I don't know. I do not see the end in sight here. If it, and I have to tell you, if I was a juror, I'd still be going, where's the evidence? Oh, there was one other thing. They also introduced surveillance footage from a property that was very close to Waveney Park, about a mile from Waveney Park, but would have been it would have shown the route that someone would take from Waveney Park back to Jennifer Dulos's home on the morning of the 25th. Because the prosecution's theory is that Fotis took the Toyota Tacoma, put his bike in the back seat, took it down, parked it at Waveney Park, and then took the bicycle, rode it to Jennifer Dulos's home, killed her, drove her in the Chevy Suburban back to Waveney Park, abandoned the Chevy Suburban. Then he puts his bicycle back in his Toyota Tacoma, back in Pavel's Toyota Tacoma, and he drives away and returns back to his office in Farmington. Okay, so they have surveillance footage of a guy on a bicycle. I'm just going to show you a picture, which is literally that quick. Like that, you see that driveway at the end of the picture? That it just shows the bicyclist driving by that driveway, headed in the direction of Jennifer Dulos's home. Now, who is on the bike? I don't know. It's a guy, or it's a person in a dark hoodie with the hoodie up, and he's got a backpack on. But in earlier testimony, and the defense was trying to keep this surveillance footage out, and the judge says, no, this is coming in because, because the defense's argument was, we don't know who this is. It's not relevant. It could be anybody. We don't know who this is. But we know there was a black hoodie found in the backseat of the Toyota Tacoma by Pavel. We also know that from earlier testimony, there's surveillance of this red Toyota Tacoma, and you can see a bicycle in the back seat of this thing, in the truck, not in the truck bed. And I'll show you a picture. You can't see the whole thing, but if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at probably a bicycle. I think this is a bicycle in the back seat of this thing. Yeah. So so the jury has seen that. What does that have to do with Michelle Troconis? I don't know. What are we going to convict her? What are we going to use to convict this woman? I'm still not beyond a reasonable doubt convinced that she conspired to commit the murder of Jennifer Dulos. Anyway, all right, so that's the update on that case. I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily, and I will have an update for you on the Montgomery case. Yeah. Well, listen all day because listening on Wednesday nights is very difficult because I do my live and then I sit through my friend's live, and so by then I'm so tired I can't even see straight. So I'll bring you an update tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I will see you then. Take care, everybody.